Lue Elizondo is still the topic of discussion over in the UFO community after his brand new book, Imminent, dropped a few weeks ago. And of course, in the promo to this, he did do an experience on the Joe Rogan Experience where he had this little rant. And after I heard it, I was like, actually, this little rant has left me with a bit of food for thought. And I wanted to share it with you guys to see what you made of it as well. So here he is on the Joe Rogan Experience.
All the sophisticated stuff that we've just completely take for granted because it's become a normal part of our everyday life.
That's I used to give a briefing to some folks. I'm so glad you mentioned this because this goes back to the whole stigma and taboo issue. I used to have a slideshow, and I still have it somewhere, and I would discuss the Latin word prefix of para, P-A-R-A, and it means above or beside. And so what I would do is I would say the word parachute. And I'd ask people, what do you think of when you hear the word parachute? And people would describe, obviously, something that deploys over your head and hopefully you hit the ground with a thump and not a thud, right? But something that's normal, we use every day. And then I say, what about the word paramedic? And then people would look at it and say, well, I think of a first responder, someone good, some sort of medical lifesaver that's going to be there for your benefit. And then when I say the word paranormal, what do you think? And people will stop for a second. Maybe they kind of give you a little sly smile. And they'll say, what do you mean? I said, what do you mean? I mean that, paranormal. The only reason why you're reacting the way you are is because you've been conditioned that the word paranormal is kooky stuff. When in reality, in science, by definition, everything is paranormal until it becomes normal.
This is true. Like literally the idea of the paranormal is a hypothesis. The whole thing is a hypothesis, and it's like the unexplained until it's explained. So ghosts, spirits, demons, aliens, Bigfoot, all that stuff in cryptozoology, all skinwalkers all fall under paranormal because, well, it's not normal and science can't define it. So it literally is that, and it really got me thinking.
The cell phone that I use every day 50 years ago, absolutely paranormal. And so I would go through this exercise of things that were once considered paranormal. For example, when the Inca first saw the Spaniards, the conquistadores coming from the reconquering, they saw them on the shores of the beach, and they saw these humans in armor riding on a horse. And they assumed, because they'd never seen a horse before, they assumed it was a single entity, it was a single monster. And that for them was paranormal. They didn't understand it was actually a human riding on a horse with, metal skin. Same thing with acupuncture. I remember a time when I was growing up as a kid, people thought Eastern medicine, acupuncture was nonsense. Well, now at the Veterans Administration, the VA, for some of my guys in combat, they actually prescribe acupuncture as therapy. It's not paranormal, right? And so there's all these examples in history where we think something is kooky and weird when in reality it's not. It's just we don't understand it yet, and we have done such a good job of stigmatizing this conversation that the moment you even say the word paranormal or you say the word UFO or anything like that, people are conditioned without even thinking about it. It's reflexive to react a certain way.
This is so true, man. It's so true, isn't it? When you talk about the paranormal, when you talk about UFOs, when you talk about aliens, ghosts, all the rest of it, there's a stigma behind it that's like, it's a divide. Instantly, you're going to divide a community. It's either going to be yes or it's going to be a no. And it's going to be like, you're crazy, you're a tinfoil hat wearing maniac. Or it's going to be, you've actually got a really good point there. That's really, I never thought of it that way. And that's the kind of stuff that it baffles me. And I love it. And that's like, he describes it down to a T, Lue Elizondo, in this podcast clip, because it's literally so spot on. It's just amazing.
And we have to first deprogram ourselves first a little bit before we can start moving forward. Okay, how do we destigmatize this conversation? Well, first of all, what's kooky? What do you think is kooky about something that's in our airspace that's performing in ways that we can't replicate? That people say, well, wait a minute. We spend millions, if not billions of dollars putting a probe on Mars to try to find microbial life. And by the way, it looks like that may happen. It looks like there actually may be some evidence to suggest that. We spend lots of money trying to find technosignatures of intelligent life, radio signatures in our own Milky Way, right? Well, is it possible within the 4.5 billion years our planet's been here that maybe intelligent life maybe found us first? Is it possible? Could be. We have to stop putting these limitations. Joe, when I was when I was in the medical program, when I was learning to be microbiology and immunology in college, we learned from our professor that Homo sapiens sapien, as a modern species, has been around roughly between 100,000 to 200,000 years. Now, I'm not an expert, but that's what they say. It was only the Greeks 2,000 years ago that introduced the idea that there's only two types of life forms on this planet, and you are either A, a plant, or B, you're an animal. And it wasn't the last 300 years. So if you look at a 24-hour clock, roughly the last 5 minutes in the 24 hours towards midnight, we discovered another form of life that is neither plant nor animal that's been here with us on this planet, and that is the world of fungus. During the Renaissance and the days of Newton, we discovered that there was this other life form we've been sharing all along. And so we pat ourselves on the shoulder, and it wasn't the last 120 years. Think about it. The last 10 seconds of our existence on this planet, so to speak, in a 24-hour clock as a modern species, we actually discovered the true dominant life form on this planet. And in fact, if you take all the biomass of every plant and the biomass of every animal and the biomass of every fungus and add it all up together, it still will not equal the biomass of this hidden kingdom of life that's actually the dominant life form on this planet. And that wasn't until we were able to curve glass and look through a little steel tube and famously shout, little beasties, did we discover the world of microorganisms that, yes, live inside of you, and yes, live on the skin of the ISS space station, and yes, live miles underneath the Arctic ice, right? That is the true dominant life form on this planet, and it always has been. And it wasn't until the last 120 years we discovered that. So is it possible that there's something else that is just as normal to this world? Is it possible? Well, the answer is a resounding yes, of course it's possible, because we're always discovering new ways life can exist. When I was growing up as a kid, I was told, absolutely, as a matter of fact, all life form is derived from photosynthesis, ultimately, when you go all the way down. It turns out that's not true. It wasn't until we discovered in the deepest depths of our oceans, or these things called black smokers, we discovered there are creatures that thrive with no light, and they thrive off of something called chemosynthesis, a completely different way to metabolize energy to sustain life, right? So every time we put Mother Nature in a little box, she always finds a way to wiggle her way out. And I think that's important when having this conversation, because if there's one thing we know as human beings, we're usually wrong at first.
Well, we exist.
Wow. It just gives you so much food for thought, doesn't it? It's like, what is this? Like, and it begs the great question of if, only over the past so many years, we've discovered, like, microbiomes and, like, little microorganisms that are basically the pinnacle of our society. And not just society, but, like, the primate living organism. Who's to say that there's not something else here already? Or in this ever-expanding universe, But that's not all that Lue dropped over in the podcast with Joe Rogan, because he also went on to talk about some serious hints about silicon-based AI life on Joe Rogan's podcast. So, I've been rewatching Lue Elizondo's interview on Joe Rogan Experience, for the third time now, because something he said has been bugging me since the first time I watched it. At the 2-hour, 4-minute mark, when Joe talked about the idea that we might be containers of souls, Elizondo responded with, "I'm not familiar with the hypothesis, but it sounds interesting." Wait, what? How could you be unfamiliar with this idea? This is basically half of what the Tom DeLonghi has been talking about, and Elizondo was the director of the TTSA. There's no way that he didn't know about it. My guess, he didn't want to dig deeper into that on air, but also didn't dismiss it. Around the 2-hour and 6-minute mark, there's been things got even more intriguing. Elizondo starts to talk about silicon, while discussing potential forms of life beyond what we know. If you listen carefully, he basically is answering Joe's question about why humans are so different from other creatures on Earth, particularly in our insatiable desire to change our environment. Joe speculates that life evolves from intelligent biological beings to something super intelligent, possibly non-organic, and boom, Elizondo drops the silicon reference. It got me thinking. Could he be hinting at the non-human intelligence, NHI, that we're dealing with based on silicon instead of carbon? Could this silicon-based life be evolved into AI, artificial intelligence? Elizondo doesn't stop there. He suggests that life forms might actually eventually transition into non-organic like AI. And silicon, as we know, is the fundamental material used in semiconductors, which are essential for the processors and memory core chips that power all modern electronics and, by extension, AI. Here's my hypothesis. What if a silicon-based life form started with something akin to a transistor as its basic unit, like how cells are the basic for carbon-based life? This silicon form could have evolved into a civilization so advanced that their life transitioned from biological entities into something entirely synthetic. Still silicon-based, but more like what we're envisioning AI becoming, basically. A bit more autonomous and robotic. Now, connect this to the theory about the rapid technological advancements made in the mid-20th century, especially in electronics during computing and like semiconductors, were sparked by studying alien artifacts. Philip Corso's claims in The Day After Roswell suggest that the US government recovered alien technology from the Roswell crash and ceded it to private industry. Corso claimed that this technology led to advancements such as semiconductors. And maybe that's why they refer to it as non-human intelligence rather than intelligent life. They're closer to AI than traditional forms. Finally, tie this with what DeLonghi has been saying about NHI's interest in our consciousness. Could that be silicon-based life evolves with consciousness? Or maybe they lost it when transitioned into AI. Of course, this could just be one species of NHI. And it might only explain only part of the encounters, perhaps the greys. Really interesting stuff, and nothing that I actually picked up on to begin with, but like this is why I love collaborating with these ideas, because I love seeing where people's minds go, because it's just fascinating, and then I get to present it to you guys and see what you guys are able to do with it. What do you guys think of this, Lo? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. While you're down there, be sure to jump to get the hell out of that like button, subscribe if you're new, and tick my little bell so you get notified whenever we upload to the channel. And until next time, I'll speak to you later. Peace.